You could be forgiven for feeling a sense of déjà vu. Successive governments talking tough on illegal immigration. Different faces, similar script.
Taking back control.
Stop the boats. We are going to smash the gangs.
Enter Shabana Mahmood, a Home Secretary who calls it her moral mission to rewrite Britain's immigration rules. The government billing it as the biggest reform to the policy since World War II.
This package of reforms is the most significant set of reforms in modern times. It is designed to bring order and control back to a broken system that we know already is causing huge pressure across our communities and is dividing our country.
Refugee charities who've been working on the ground for decades have already been critical of these policies that you're announcing. I mean, is that a bad omen? They know this patch well.
Look, I will of course listen to what everyone has to say about this package, and I would say to people who have concerns, my job here is to recognise that we have a system that's not working and to put that right and to unite our country as well. I'm not willing to look the other way whilst people in our country are driven apart.
Taking inspiration from Denmark, once Europe's toughest stance on immigration. That is, until now. Under the proposals, those granted asylum in the UK will now have a 20-year wait instead of the current 5 before they can apply to remain permanently. So refugee status becomes temporary, with refugees having their situation reviewed every 30 months when they could be returned to their home country if it's declared safe. And the legal duty to provide benefits and housing for asylum seekers could be removed if they have the right to work but choose not to. The Home Secretary will also attempt to reform the European Convention on Human Rights, making it easier to deport people coming to Britain illegally.
Well, the government needs to stop its performative headline-grubbing announcements and trying to become tougher. Communities are being ripped apart by decades of economic failure, by the hollowing out of public services, by the fact that there is no longer the glue that binds people together. That's not a consequence of illegal migration. It's not a consequence of asylum seekers, and they shouldn't be scapegoated.
The Home Office says a golden ticket system in the UK has helped drive a rise in people coming to Britain. Between 2011 and 2015, there were 150,000 people claiming asylum, but since 2021, that's more than doubled to over 400,000. And the number of people applying for asylum last year rose by 18% in the UK, a record high, while across Europe, claims fell by 13%. But while taking support away from asylum seekers is uncomfortable territory for many in the Labour Party, the Conservatives say the plans aren't radical enough.
We need to make sure that every single illegal immigrant is deported within a week of arrival, with no asylum claims at all allowed, and we need to make sure that foreign citizens in this country are not eligible for taxpayer-funded benefits.
I mean, you had 14 years to sort this out, didn't you? I mean, what's different now?
Well, of course, we now have new leadership. Kemi Badenoch was never Prime Minister. I was never Home Secretary. We now have a new team and a new approach.
And what a difference a couple of months make, with claims that Starmer's former deputy, Angela Rayner, could be the latest person circling to oust Sir Keir Starmer. Less heart emoji, more heartbreak.
It's civil war in the Labour Party, isn't it?
I know. Well, all of this talk is happening allegedly behind closed doors and in anonymous briefings. I think my own view on these matters is if people have something to say, they should have the courage to say so publicly. I have no time for any of this Westminster bubble, chitter, chatter.
And what about you? Do you fancy the top job one day?
I am focused only on the job that I am doing. It's a big job.
What we see from Labour is cabinet ministers and the Prime Minister fighting like rats in a sack. The Prime Minister trying to kneecap poor old Wes Streeting, and Angela Rayner hovering in the background, sharpening her knife because she smells blood in the water.
Frankly, terrifying metaphors for you all before tea time.
Right, OK.
Back to reality in the coming weeks for a Prime Minister juggling a radical reform to immigration and a Chancellor plotting a heavy winter budget. The hope is simple, that policy, not crisis, will define this government's story.
Well, I'm joined now by Joe White, who's Labour MP for Bassett Law and the chair of the Red Wall Caucus of Labour MPs, and who's also on the Home Affairs Select Committee. And with me here in the studio, Sundar Katwala, who's head of British Future, which is a think tank which focuses on migration and integration. Thanks both of you for coming in on a Sunday evening. Joe White, first off, you said today your constituents support this. That doesn't make it right. Why is it right?
It's a huge issue in my constituency, but I think with other MPs right across the party are telling me that it's a big issue with their constituents as well. The sight of small boats crossing the English Channel into our country has given people the sense of our borders are under threat, but also
we get the emotion, but why is this set of measures the right thing to do? Why is it going to improve things?
So we have to get tougher. That's what they want us to do. Their demand of Parliament and government is to get tougher and to bring in measures that deter people from coming here. At the moment, the gangs are operating and they're telling people that it's easy to get here. They'll come here. They'll be put up in hotels. They will get food, bed and watered and looked after. And we need to have that strong message that if you come here, you have to obey our rules and regulations. But also, if you do get granted asylum, there'll be reviews every couple of years, and that you'll be here for a maximum of 20 years. And the intention is that you should return to your country when it's safe to do so and help to rebuild that country.
OK, a lot of packages there, a lot of ideas there. Senator Cutwaller, what's wrong with that?
Well, there is a visible lack of control in the Channel, in hotels. So the challenge becomes what would bring control while maintaining compassion and building confidence. Governments have failed to do this. And while these are new proposals today, they're incredibly similar to the proposals that Priti Patel had 3 years ago.
Are they 20-year wait and you can be sent back any time every 30-month review?
Yeah,
that's
the 30-month reviews was the same policy. They said it'd be permanent in 10 years. Now this government says 20 years. But that didn't stop the boats. That was then scrapped for a much tougher system that said we will hear nobody's claims at all under Suella Braverman. And that did not deter. So if that did not deter, there is a limit to how much this pull factor analysis, which is somewhat exaggerated, will. And therefore what the government needs is to focus on what will get control, which is a system that has accessible routes and enforcement and refusal of returns to those who come outside it.
But they have focused on what works because they went to Denmark, and this has reduced Denmark's illicit migration to its lowest point for 40 years. It works.
Britain isn't Denmark. Denmark has spent 10 years getting a reputation for being the toughest country in Europe. There are some things about Denmark we can't emulate. They speak the Danish language, we speak the English language. We can't change that.
English is spoken throughout
I know,
Denmark.
but that is a major reason for the Danish thing. So Denmark has fewer asylum bids. It worked for Denmark, but we had tougher rules than Denmark in 2023 and 2024 when we said no claims at all will come, and it didn't work here because we didn't actually get to grips with what would stop the gangs.
Joe White, the government's basing it on Denmark, not a right analogy.
Well, I disagree with Sundar. What the previous government did was try to go down the Rwanda route, where they just stopped processing claims. We had 75,000 backlog when this government came into power, and we're having to deal with them, including the increasing number of boats coming across. If you look at what Denmark's done, 95% of those people who are not entitled to be in their country are removed, and I think we should be emulating that. But also, they require people to pay for the costs of their claim. Whilst I don't think what Denmark's done when they immediately did demand a jury tax, what I believe, if an asylum seeker is given a claim, they should be made to pay for that claim once they've been processed. And I think everybody should have to contribute in this country if they're expected to stay here.
Right, Joe, well, your government was elected for change, simple, clear, crisp change. Why not do this? Why not say there is one route into the UK to claim asylum? We'll derogate from the European Convention on Human Rights as necessary to get that out of the way. We won't leave it, but we'll change the bits we don't like. That's how it works. If you come any other way, you're off to Heathrow and you're back home. Why? What's wrong with that?
Personally, my personal view is that we should have regulations whereby we process claims at the first point of safety, not in the European Union, but countries such as...
Yeah, that wasn't what I asked. What's wrong with what I just said?
I don't think it will work with the European Union. We need to stop those gangs, and that will not work. That continues this trail. I know that, but you just said that will not work. You're suggesting that we bring people travel as far as Europe, and claims are process in Europe. I don't believe that will work. Also, we are now operating the one in, one out scheme, and that 3,000 people have now been gone through that scheme. But also, I think we should be partnering other countries such as the Netherlands and Belgium in order to expand that scheme and make it work better.
OK, let me put that suggestion to you, Sundar. Why not have just a simple, there's only one way to get asylum, anything else, you're back to Heathrow. And we'll deal with the European Convention on Human Rights.
The spirit behind the question you're asking and what Joe's saying, that's right. If you want to provide a queue that is safe, accessible and controlled and tell people that's how you claim, that can be used as a tool to take the market away from the gangs. If you provide the queue and the controlled route, it's reasonable to say to people, we'll penalise you if you jump it. Telling people to come legally when you haven't provided the route doesn't work. Telling people they should work when they don't have the right to work doesn't work. If you join the policies up, you can have control and compassion. That's much better than refusing everybody. So I think the government does have some tools it could use that would make the difference.
Joe White, how do you settle successfully in this country if your case is going to be reviewed every 30 months? You can't get a mortgage, you can't get a loan, you can't function. How does that actually work?
My view is if somebody comes here with and their claim is processed, we are meeting our humanitarian obligations. But that person has travelled here from a country that is torn apart I'm asking,
you want to settle here? How do you set up a business? How do you settle? You won't get a loan if you've been reviewed every 30 months. It doesn't work.
My view is that if you're here, then the process is that it should be expected that you return to in order to rebuild your country at the point when it becomes safe to do so.
Right. Very briefly on that one, final word to you. How do you settle in this country if you're under review?
Well, if Ukrainians want to go home, we should help them go home. It wouldn't have been right to say to Ugandan Asians, we'll tell you if you can stay in 1991, not 1971. When people are staying, it can be temporary for a while, but you know, not for 20 years. I think when people have reapplied 3 times, we should absolutely let them settle and stay.
Have to leave it there. Sundar Katwala, Joe White, thank you both very much indeed.